Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Sherman Reach. I'm finally doing my best books that I read in 2019. So 2019 has been a crazy year. So far right now, I have read about 293 books, something like that. I'm still trying to aim for my 300 goal here. So I've definitely read a ton of books, and it was hard, guys, trying to narrow it down to my top 10 best books because there were a lot of good books. There were also a lot of not so great books, which I will include in a later video because that one is going to be a lot of tea. Like, I already started doing like the notes for it, and it is tea right there, guys. But anyways, I'm really excited to share all these 10 books with you. So the first book that I want to discuss is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Also, by the way, my heater just kicked on, so you would definitely hear that in the background. Hopefully it's not too bad though. But this book I gave 5 stars. Actually, all of the books I'm mentioning in this video were all 5-star reads for me. So for this book, I actually did a whole reading vlog on it, which I will link somewhere above. It's also non-spoilers, so for those who haven't read this book yet, you can still technically watch that video. But this book follows a witch called Lou who has been running and hiding from her past for the past few years. The other main character we follow is Reed, who is a witch hunter. Somehow things happen and the two of them are suddenly coerced into marriage. Reed has no idea that he has just married a witch, while Lou, on the other hand, definitely knows that Reed is a witch hunter. But because of her circumstances from her past, she is totally okay with marrying him. And as the story continues, the two of them start to fall in love. At the same time though, Lou is also trying to deal with her past that is now catching up to her. So this book, like I said already, I love the characters, I love the romance, like everything about this book I honestly enjoyed. But for more information on my thoughts, definitely check out my reading vlog. The next book that I want to discuss is Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. So this is a sci-fi novel following a group of cadets. The book starts off with Tyler, who is supposed to be getting ready to pick his squad, but instead goes on some sort of test flight and ends up saving a girl who has been asleep for the past 200 years from a spaceship that has been missing for centuries. And because of the fact that he went to save her, he did not make it back in time, ends up with the dregs for his squad. Unfortunately for Tyler though, the dregs, his squad, is the least of his problems and concerns because apparently Aurora, the girl that he has saved, might be a catalyst for a war that has been brewing for millennia. And as the book continues, his band of misfits goes on a mission that might change the world. This book was so freaking good. I mean, this dynamic duo, like Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, should continue writing these sci-fi series because they're just so good. Like, I love the characters, I love the plot, like everything about these books were just amazing. I also read the Lumine series, which I considered putting it on this list, but I feel like Aurora Rising, just something about it and the anticipation for a future book, like I don't know the ending, just makes it so much sweeter, and that's why I decided to pick this book instead of the Illuminate Files. So honestly though, both series are 5 stars and I just love it so much. My favorite element in this book was definitely the characters. There was just something about their banter, their interactions, their dynamics with each other. It's just so engaging and so riveting, and it was just so much fun to read about. I also really liked how diverse the characters were, and that was a huge plus in my book. There were also so many twists and turns in the plot, and honestly I just cannot wait for the sequel. I saw the cover of the sequel and it looks freaking gorgeous. The next book that I want to discuss is Sorcery of Thrones by Margaret Rogerson. This book has gotten some mixed reviews, I feel like, but honestly it is so good. I just loved it. So this book follows a girl called Elizabeth who has been raised in this magical library her entire life, and this magical library is magical because it houses these grimoires which are one of a kind. They are created by these sorcerers, which Elizabeth has grown up believing that they are kind of evil or something like that. And so the library houses these grimoires, yet at the same time they're protecting the people from these grimoires because they also have their own personalities, and if provoked they can actually turn into these monstrous beings. So Elizabeth's dream is to become a warden of a library, and one day she somehow gets implicated in a crime where a magical grimoire escapes and a warden actually gets killed. And to prove her innocence, she must now travel to the city, but things happen and she finds out that the only person that she can rely on at this point is a sorcerer called Nathaniel and his demonic servant called Silas. And from that moment on, she finds herself in the middle of some sort of conspiracy with the world at stake, as well as the fact that everything that she learned growing up might not be 100% true. Like I said already, this book was phenomenal. I absolutely love the characters, the writing, writing, the plot, everything was just so well done. I think my favorite element in this book, as you probably guys know already if you guys been following my channel, is Silas. There's just something about his character, his quirky behavior that just really stands out to me, and I just loved him. Like the entire time after reading this, I was like, I wish there was more Silas because he was just so adorable and I just love reading about him. And at the end, the ending for him, I was just like, I just need more of him. Like, just please, like some sort of spin-off, something that has him in it. Like, give me more of Silas. Another element that I really liked in this book that really stood out to me was actually the writing. There's just something about Margaret's writing that is just so enchanting and so vivid that I was able to imagine everything perfectly. And so I feel like she's just really good at writing these like fantasy, kind of like lyrical, magical world, because her writing, her prose just elevates that, I think, to the next level. And now that I have read this book, I just need to go back and read her first book, An Enchantment of Ravens, which I've heard is mostly just like for a cute romancy fairy novel. Like, it's nothing spectacular, but honestly I still want to read it because I love this book. It was just so good. I cannot wait for her next book. Then the next book that I want to discuss is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. To be honest, I was kind of debating about putting this book on here because I recently read Starsight. I believe that's the second book, the sequel, and I was not that impressed with it. I think I gave it 4 stars because it was just not what I expected, and Skyward was just such a phenomenal read that Starsight was just not that great. It definitely had like middle book syndrome, so I was debating about this one, but honestly Skyward is just so good that I still really want to recommend this book. So anyways, this book is set in space. It follows a girl called Spencer who is trying her best to get into flight school. Unfortunately though, years ago her father was actually a renowned pilot, but something happened and he's now deemed as a coward, and so because of that no one really wants Spencer to be in the flight school as well. However, things happen as they always do in books, and she ends up getting enrolled into flight school. And from there, she learns more about the Krells, which is this ancient alien species that her people has been fighting against for the past 100 years or so, as well as the truth to what happened to her father all those years ago. I'm starting to think that I really like books with characters. I think I'm more of a character-driven reader now that I think about it. I used to think I was a character and plot, like one or the other had to be amazing, but based on what I've said so far, the thing that stands out to me from all of these books is actually the characters. I think if I didn't follow the characters, I wouldn't care as much for the plot or the writing, but the characters need to be amazing. And in this book, the characters were freaking fantastic. There was one character in particular that I absolutely loved so much. It was just freaking hilarious and it just made me laugh the entire time. And if you have read this book, you know which character I'm talking about because that character was probably the highlight of this entire book. But I also really liked reading about Spencer as well as her fellow cadets and the friendship that formed between all of them, because in the beginning it was hard. I mean, Spencer was pretty much looked down upon as an outcast because of what her father did all those years ago. So she grew up being basically alone, and so as she started to know her fellow cadets, as they started to know her, their friendship, their relationship changed, and I just love watching that friendship grow to something so wonderful. And it was just such a good, like, beautiful friendship, guys. There was also this mystery element that I didn't really expect, but honestly it was done so well, and I was so surprised at the very end. Like, it left on such a huge cliffhanger that you're just like still trying to comprehend what really happened and what is behind everything. And the second book definitely explains a lot more of it, but I think it still suffered like second book or middle book syndrome because anyways, that's enough about that book. Skyward itself is freaking fantastic, and if you want a good sci-fi novel, then this is the book, guys. Okay, then the next book that I want to recommend, I feel like I've been recommending this book so many times already, but it's just so good, and that is Nightingale by Chris and Hannah. So this is a historical fiction set in World War II in a small town in France. The book follows 2 sisters. One is Vianne, who is suddenly forced to house a Nazi in her house, as well as Isabel, who because of circumstances decides to join the resistance. And the book just essentially follows the 2 of them throughout the years, throughout the wartime, trying to survive and doing what they can to fight back. I think this is one of the most beautiful books that I have read in a very long time. It's incredibly emotional. It's also very vivid, and there were just so many times that I teared up, and that's not something that really happens to me, but the way how Chris and Hannah portrays the characters made me feel so connected to them, and I felt like everything that they were feeling, I was feeling too. And because of that time period, everything they were feeling was like all these negative emotions. And so I too was feeling all that as well, like the sadness, the pain, the suffering, everything was just like like that book was just so good. Like if you're in for some like really emotional read, then I think this is a really good book. But if you're not in the right mindset for like a war-ridden book, then I don't think this is a book for you. But honestly, like, give this book a chance. It is so good. Like, I still think about it because it's just such a beautifully written novel. And Kristen Hanna has some sort of talent where she can just bring the characters to life like so vividly, and like the scenery, the setting. She just writes these really amazing women's fiction, kind of historical as well. And it's just done so well, guys. Like, this book is just phenomenal. Like, I have no other words. Okay, then the next book slash series that I want to talk about is one that I mean, a lot of people like it as well, but there's definitely some mixed reviews in it as well, and that is A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J Maas. This book is just one of those highly debated books, like series in the book universe. I feel like half the people absolutely love this book to pieces and the other half completely hate it and think it's complete garbage. But honestly, like, I'm on the half clearly that thinks this is wonderful. I mean, I would definitely not say this is like a work of art or something like that. I feel like that's not the case at all. But I just became so invested with the characters and the romance and Reese. Like, hello Reese. So I mean, honestly, like, that's why I loved it. So that's really all there is to it. But anyways, this book follows a girl called Farah who, because of her family situations, end up in the woods. I think it's like a winter or something like that, and she's trying to get some food for her family, and she ends up stumbling upon some sort of wolf and kills the wolf. And this wolf ends up being some sort of disguised fairy, and after she gets back home, a fairy shows up demanding that Farah pay for what she has done. And so because of that, she ends up getting transported into the land of fairy. And as the whole series continues, things changed so much, and I just became so invested. Like, I would say, like I said already, Reese is my favorite. Like, I love Reese so much. I also love Cassian and Asriel. Like, all those characters were just so amazing to me, and I cannot wait for this spin-off series. Like, when is it coming out? Because I have heard nothing about it. I just heard there's some sort of spin-off series because novella at the end of the third book is supposed to be some sort of continuation, like some sort of like bridge between this series and the spin-off series. But I haven't heard anything about the spin-off series, so if you have any information about it, please let me know down below, because I am eager to find out when the next book will come out, when the next series will come out, and when will I get to read more about Reese, because he's amazing, guys. So the next recommendation that I want to share is a series that is definitely overlooked. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about it except for me, and the only reason I know about it is because I did a vlog tour for it, and I am so grateful I did it because it became one of my favorite books of the entire year. And this series is called The Amira Chronicles by Ellen Shar. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I definitely butchered that, I think. I am so sorry. But this was such an underrated series that I absolutely enjoyed, and I really hope that more people read it because it is so good. So this is an epic fantasy trilogy that follows a young girl called Bleak who is trying to keep her magical powers hidden with the consumption of alcohol. Basically what that means is that she drinks herself into a stupor to avoid hearing and listening into other people's minds. One day the king somehow finds out about her power and sends the commander of the army to go and retrieve her. However, before she arrives at the castle, she is actually taken captive by an infamous female group of warriors called the Valia. And from there she finds out the origin of her powers, the secret of her past, and just so much more. And this book was so freaking good. The only downside to this entire series, I think, is the beginning of the first book, just because there's so much world building to be had. There's like the introduction of the world, the introduction of the characters, the plot, kind of like the political aspect of the book. So the beginning of this book I feel like was a little bit slow, but once you get past a certain point it became so fascinating, and I just could not stop reading it. I was like, oh my god, like at the end I was like, wait, this book is so much better. Like, I just did not expect the book to be amazing, and it was so good. There are definitely a few elements to this book that really stood out to me. I mean, the characters were just fantastic. There were just so many great characters, great female friendships, and there's also a found family aspect that I also really enjoyed. So at the end of the day, this series was phenomenal. I absolutely enjoyed every single bit of it. There's also this magical panther called Rion, which I was like, I did not know that I want a magical panther, but I I really want a magical panther. Okay, then the next book that I want to talk about is actually a series as well, and that is A Heart So Fierce and Broken, as well as the first book, A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Camera. I don't really know what my first book is right now, so I only have the second book right now to show, but both of these books were fantastic. So this whole series is basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling. In the first book, it follows a girl called Harper who is basically taken away from the modern world, from DC, to this fairyland, and from there she is basically supposed to help Prince Ren break this curse before he turns into a monster for the millionth time and basically kills his entire people. And that's basically what the book is about. I mean, it's a very Beauty and the Beast retelling with some plot twist to it. And then the second book follows Commander, his name is Gray, as well as a new character called Amira. I mean, both of these books honestly were just fantastic. I loved the characters. I feel like the characters really stood out for me, and not just generally speaking, but specifically the female characters. I feel like Harper in this book was such a strong female character. She also has cerebral palsy, and from what I've heard, it's a really great rep of cerebral palsy. And in the second book, there's a female character called Amira, who's also another badass female character. And so I just love it when books, fantasy books, have really strong female leads, and both of these books really delivered on that front. So overall, the series is fantastic. I absolutely love the strong female characters. I really liked all the other characters as well. I love the magical element to it. I love the fact that it meshed modern world and a fairy world as well. There were just so many aspects to this book that I absolutely enjoyed, and I love retellings, guys. And I feel like this year, apparently Beauty and the Beast retellings is the thing, because this is also Beauty and the Beast retelling. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but this is also like a loosely Beauty and the Beast retelling, but only for the first book. But anyways, I'm here for it, guys. Then the next book that I want to discuss is one that I feel like I've shared a few times as well, and that is Radium Girls by Kate Moore. This is a non-fiction novel that delves into the history of the Radium Girls. Radium was first discovered, I want to say, around the 1910s, 1920s, and when it was first discovered, not much of its properties were really known, and all they knew was that it was very glowy, and so they basically were using radium for a lot of things, including painting. And so because during that time period there was a war, they were basically painting these dials to be used in war to let people know like it's supposed to shine during the night because it's glowy. And they were basically hiring female workers because the men were all fighting the war. And so this book just really talked about the effects of what happened when they were working in an environment that was not safe, especially because they were basically taught to paint these dials using their tongue and dipping the paint into their mouth. And so because of that, what happened to these girls, their health and everything was just crazy. So I mean, like, this nonfiction was just so riveting. It was so enlightening, and I think this is one of the nonfiction books that I will think about for years to come, because it was just the things that the girls went through, the suffering that they had to endure, the injustice of it all from the corporations, and everything that they had to face was just so heartbreaking. Kate Moore did a fantastic job with researching everything and really feeling like the characters came to life, because I actually felt so connected. Like, this book did not really read like a nonfiction for me. It felt more like some sort of, like, I don't even know how to describe it, to be honest, but it felt like I was reading like a story, and it just didn't seem real. So this book, this nonfiction, was fantastic, and one of the best books I have read this entire year, hands down. Okay, then the last and final book that I want to discuss in this video is one that I cannot not discuss, and that is The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. Everything about this whole series is just fantastic. I think I literally read the entire series this year. Like, I started after Wicked King came out. I was like, I need to read The Cruel Prince, so I caught up with it, read it for the first time, read it in the beginning of the year around like January or February. Loved it. And then before this came out, I was like, I need to do a reread because I wanted to remember everything in vivid detail. And so I basically reread all the books, but this time I listened to an audiobook just so I can give it a different format and like different experience. Loved it as well. And then I read this book and I was just like, so satisfying, guys. But I do really wish that there's some sort of spin-off, because I feel like there's definitely some elements to this book that could potentially have a spin-off series in the future, which, fingers crossed, guys, like, I really hope so. But anyways, for those who don't know what this series is about, it follows a girl called Jude who is a human, and something happened when she was just very young, and she somehow gets transported into the fairy world. So basically her entire life she has lived in fairy. And the thing is, despite hating everyone in fairy because of their customs, their way of life, etc., she still really yearns to be like one of them. And because of her status as a human, she is basically looked down upon from everyone else. So she has to work extra hard to belong in the court of fairies. And so as the book continues, as the series continues, she really tries her best to find her own place in the court of fairies. And the thing about her that is so fascinating for me is the fact that she was able to make all these elaborate plans, and things just like fall in place. Like she planned it essentially. And then the third book, guys, and I was just like, ugh. Anyways, that's all I'm gonna say about this entire series. I feel like I'm just gonna ramble because there's just so much I can say about this entire series, from the characters like Jude and Carden, guys, like oh my god. And there are also these relationships that I really want to develop, and I feel like that's another reason why I think there is a potential for a future series, like a future spin-off, because hopefully those relationships that I am questioning in this book will actually develop in future books. But as of right now, I don't know. So if you do know, please let me know down below as well, because I would definitely like to know if there's some sort of future to this world, because I really want more Carden. Like him and Jude honestly are just like, their character development, their character relationship like for each other has grown exponentially throughout the entire series, and I just love being part of that journey. So anyways, that is it in terms of my best 10 books of 2019. If you have read any of the books I mentioned here, let me know what your thoughts are as well, if you enjoyed them as much as I did. I know some of these books had some mixed reviews, so let me know which side you are on. But as always, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe down below, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!